It's set in the early 1970s, 1972 to be precise, the summer of 72. And the significance of that is the first TV appearance of David Bowie. Burst onto the scene on a little known show really. Everybody talks about the Top of the Pops appearance of Bowie singing Starman in the summer of 72, but he was on a lesser known programme called Lift Off with Aisha, which I witnessed myself and watched with my family, and I think the influence of that performance on TV and the following Top of the Pops a couple of weeks later was massive on the youth of that day, and it's that effect on a particular youth of that day, a boy growing up in Manchester, that the play then starts to develop and explore.
Right.
So he's inspired by the music.
Yeah, it's a sort of seismic moment in his life. John Lennon said when he first saw Elvis, that was it. People will have seen the Beatles on Granada in 1961, 62, and that was it. And for my generation, to quote The Who, for my generation, it was the appearance of David Bowie on this programme, singing Starman. And for a kind of a youngster who's an outsider, who's maybe a dreamer, maybe a little bit artistic, who doesn't fit in easily with the world that he sees around him, seeing David Bowie on TV was all of a sudden a blast of colour, a blast of, I don't know, escape from the situation that he found himself in at that time.
So what do you remember about the performance, the Bowie one in particular? Can you remember what you were doing at the time when you watched it?
Well, yeah, we were sat around. It was children's television, which in those days wasn't on at 5 o'clock in the morning. It came on at tea time when you got in from school. So you sat around the dinner table, and in those days, everybody watched the same TV all the time. So you got mum, dad, brothers, sisters, all sat round, and all of a sudden, come on, look at this, look at this. There's a guy on with makeup on his face, bright red lipstick, singing as if he'd come from another planet. But no one had ever seen anything like that then, at that time. All the pop groups had long hair. And of course it was termed around that time glam rock. But Bowie, in my opinion, Bowie and that performance was the one that blew everybody away. And that's why I think it's significant, and that's why the play opens with the family watching that programme on TV.
So how big's the cast then?
The cast, it's quite a big cast for a small play. We're looking at about 8 actors. There are 11 roles, but we think that we need 8 actors to cover those 11 roles in the play. But it's centred on the boy in the family, the teenage boy, 13, 14 years of age, and initially you explore his relationships with his family, because you know this was such an explosive event within the family that it takes everybody by surprise, and straight away you're into the generation gap with the dad down the pub with his mates, the bitter men of Manchester. And all of a sudden you've got this guy in there with lipstick and makeup, and everybody, well, I wouldn't say everybody, but the audience on the show and loads of people watching would have gone wild. Maybe not the grown-ups.
There's issues of sexuality in the play, isn't there? Very
much so, and I think that stems from the role that Bowie was playing. David Bowie would probably say he was playing a role, but one of the things that the protagonist in the play, the boy in the play, unsure about his own sexuality, and all of a sudden, you know, he probably feels that he can explore it a little bit more, seeing somebody like David Bowie as a role model, I suppose. Because most of the boys in the playground at school just wanted to hit you, they wanted to fight. They were all into football hooliganism, or Slade with the Doc Martin boots and the Crombie overcoats. And there was a film out at the time, the famous, infamous Clockwork Orange, Anthony Burgess's film. Stanley Kubrick, wasn't it, who directed it. And that there was so much violence around at that time, 1970s. For a boy who was 14 or 13, all you saw around you was violence. You saw it in the playground. The teachers would beat hell out of you all day long.
Do you think Manchester was a particularly violent place?
Incredibly so for somebody who was 14.
Yeah.
Incredibly so. You spent your whole week avoiding the teachers hitting you, and maybe your parents too, and then you went out at the weekend and you were avoiding the punches and the kicks, and particularly if you went to a football match. And this is the, you can see how a more sensitive adolescent would feel as if they were alien to all this. Alien.
I feel like you're slipping through the cracks a bit, because I suppose, knowing the kind of the course of history, that there was a lot more artists and breakthroughs in culture and sexuality that did pave that way. But I feel like this period you're talking, sort of 72 to let's say 75, 76, before you had punk and a lot of queer culture, for example, that comes along, did you feel like it was very alienating?
Well, for an ordinary boy in a Manchester secondary school, the things you just referred to didn't exist. They just simply didn't exist.
So it wasn't a case of not feeling like you couldn't belong. It was like these options weren't even.
They weren't on the table.
Yeah.
You mentioned the phrase queer culture. Well, it's only 5 years before that you'd be arrested for being homosexual. That was 1967. 5 years before. We've come a long way since then.
So what part of Manchester was it that you grew up in?
Myself, I grew up in the north of Manchester. It's grim up north.
Yeah. So would that be
even grimmer up north?
Would that be
South Manchester?
Would that be Salford in particular? Or
no, I personally grew up in the north of Manchester, Middleton,
right
near Rochdale.
Okay.
Yeah, and in fact, I was going to refer to them being very dark times. They literally were dark times because there were power cuts. Power cuts that year, 3-day week working. It was so grey and dark, you couldn't believe it. So imagine the colour when David Bowie appeared on television that night in June.
With the red hair.
And everything, the satin suits. The guys in his band, physically looked like brickies. But they had satin, all sorts, blues, yellows, pinks, purples, high heels this high. I had purple high heels in 1972, and I was 6'2" or 3", with another 6 inches on my high heels. It's pretty tall.
Because it wasn't long that you'd had colour telly either.
No, I think we only got a colour telly that year actually. You're right. I think
because it was black and white up till then, wasn't it?
Yeah, because I was so poor that we had a black and white telly, and I used to go to my mates' houses on FA Cup final day because they had a colour telly.
No,
so this is the area. I hope I'm painting a picture here of how
very much so. Very, very much so. So is this the same area that the play is set in? Or
the play is set in Manchester.
Just Manchester in general? Because I suppose you can generalise a lot of that, can't you? I mean, what you were describing. I know South Manchester's always had a bit of a different reputation, but I think when you think of Manchester in the 70s, it's all a lot of picture you're painting.
I hope so, yeah. I hope I'm getting that picture over to you.
Oh no, definitely. The thing is, my parents grew up in Manchester in the 70s, so the same picture you're painting is one that I've heard before. Okay. So it's very it's very familiar. So getting back to the play a bit, what kind of arc and basically what kind of story does this boy go through? You've mentioned music and David Bowie, but that seems to be more of a starting point rather than the entire crux of it. So if you could explain a little bit more about the play, perhaps. It
is a starting point, but in a way, the play takes you into his daily life, and you see the kind of thorns he's surrounded by. I've titled the play Thorn. Everywhere he goes, there are thorns. In the playground with the other lads, the gang. We've got a sort of a he-man, alpha male boy in the playground who picks on him, they always have a sidekick. There's a sidekick there too. He tries to branch out, play some sport. likes running, pretty good at running, runs for the athletics team. So he's not a kind of, he's not a total hideaway in the attic. He does make attempts to be like the others. But we follow him from school. We see him in his family, his relationships. Perhaps difficult with a father, authoritarian, man's man, alpha male. His mum's far more liberated into sort of the feminist literature. It was just starting to come out around that time. Women's lib was coined around that time. The Burn Your Bra Brigade, I can't say that. But those were the kind of 1972 ways that things were looked at. I'm using all hackneyed phrases here, but that was the way it was. But Mum was quite an enlightened figure. He's got a sister who he does feel he can talk to and bond with and share some of his difficulties. But as soon as he's out in the world, it's difficult for him.
He's got to put that whole shell up.
The street gangs,
the
National Front were big at that time. They give him a bit of a chase in the play, but I don't want to tell you the whole.
You want to keep the best stuff.
I want to keep some stuff, but I'm trying to paint a picture of what it's like for a young boy at that time. And the majority of the play is that summer 1972. Although we do move forward for part of the play.
So do you feel maybe it's sort of like a kitchen sink drama type of play? Because I know the boy, sort of has gone on to be influenced that sort of thing, and I know that sort of drama, say like Sheena Delele, that's been very popular in Manchester at that time. So is that the kind of theatre you were going for? I
think I am influenced by A Taste of Honey.
These working class dramas.
Sheena Delene,